Hey everybody, this is Perch. Let's talk about characters. Do the companies have too many of them? Here's a good question. It says, today I watched another channel that talked about all the characters currently in the public domain because the publishers didn't care enough to keep them protected. There are obscure characters like Blue Bolt, a creation of Kirby and Simon, Atlas, Six Gun Gorilla, and Catman, among many others. During a recent video on your channel, you answered a question about DC Marvel having too many characters and no depth to many more characters. Your video reminded me of the earlier, specifically the part where the host spoke about how publishers tossed many characters out there of these characters, basically catching on in hopes that they would catch on and making a buck from them. He even shared that one publisher put their book out starting with issue number 9 in order to make readers think it had more something. Yeah, this is true. We'll talk about more of that in a second. It appears Marvel and DC is largely doing the same thing, throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall to see which sticks and doing weird things to pop a number. I'd love to hear some of the weirder things you know that was attempted from the Golden Age to get that number. Maybe some of the strange characters you know of and what happened and what could be learned, good and bad, from that period of comics. I think, well, first off, there are a lot of different things about that time period. And the biggest one was people were hoping to get, rich from these characters, but not rich like they think about it today, not like Hollywood rich. They were hoping to get, something popular started that could be kind of a pulp hero that might get adapted and do things, but beyond the wildest dreams of people were not, multi-billion-dollar blockbusters. They weren't playing for that kind of game. And this sets up maybe, it would be a whole other video, but just something to contemplate. I'll just throw this question out there and it's something to talk about another time, which is, why is it that if you look at the kind of 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and that kind of time period, you had a bunch of characters come out, Superman, Batman, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, etc. And make no mistake about it, the people who created these things were trying to make money. They were trying to create characters that kids would latch onto and, could be, big money makers for them. They were definitely, capitalists in their mind. They were not artists just doing things for the sake of art. They were trying to make a buck. And in many cases, these characters were built to be successful. And I say that because, the ones that hit, and quite a few of them did hit, they're around today. They are actually making those billions of dollars, but that was not the intent when they were originally made. It was the intent. The intent was to make money, but it was a different strategy than they use now. The strategy now of kind of throwing things out there for, it's hard to tell what the approach is these days. There is certainly the let's make some comics in hopes that Netflix will do a series or Disney Plus will do a series on it and everything else. But there's also this approach of let's do it because it's the right thing to do, because, it will somehow make us more successful if we create a lot of these new characters. A lot of the characters, to the original male's point, are being created and discarded, not really with any strategy or purpose in mind. They're invented, they're created, they get an initial buzz, they get some tweets out of it. Look, we've got a indigenous creator. We have a handy-capable indigenous trans character now. Hooray! And then finally, the voices of those people are being heard. You can see yourself in the comic. And the thing is, and I know a lot of other channels will dump on that stuff. It's fine if it's making money, if there's a point to it, or even if the strategy is, hey, we don't need to make money with every character, but we do want to have representation for every character. Okay, I think that's a silly thing, but that it's not, but that's fine. I'm not the target audience. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But where it falls apart is if 8 months later that character is gone. The character gets one appearance. There's a bunch of hooray tweets because now you're finally being seen, and then the character immediately fades into complete obscurity, never seen or heard from again. I don't know. Was anything? I've asked this question before. Nobody's been able to get me a serious answer to it. Is that accomplishing anything? Please, there's a lot of people coming in the comments like the woke, but this isn't. I'm looking past the whatever that argument is all about and simply asking the question: if you buy into this idea that these characters are not being created for profit, they're not being created to make $1 billion, they're being created to provide representation so people can see themselves in the comics. Okay, for the moment, no matter what your view is, just work with me here. None of that, Perch, I think what you're not understanding. Jesus Christ, people, just work with me on this for a second. Assume for the moment you're on board with that plan, all right? That whether you agree or disagree, just for the moment, representation matters. Being people able to see themselves inside the comic book is a good deal. Great. We get those characters out into the pages, and then we promptly never see them again. They show up in a short story of an anthology, and and never are seen again. Did we accomplish the goal? Like what did we do there? We got some tweets out of it, but I mean, are we saying basically that, hey, representation matters in comics for a couple pages, and then once you've accomplished that, you can shut up because you've had your representation, you're done? Because that's kind of how it feels. Like, you got to commit to the bit. Either you're in to, create popularized characters for money. I know I'm straying from the original question's email, but it goes back to the, like, lots of characters were made with purposes in mind. And if you go back, 80 years or so, the purpose was make some cash. Again, make at least stability cash. Make, and I do find it funny. That is something that they did in the Golden Age, actually quite a bit, is they would start comic books. On issue number 9, there was a couple comic books that started at 14, one that started at 24. Why did they do this? Because at the time, the logic was, hey, if we start it with a number 1, nobody's going to believe this character matters. But if we start it with like a 19, issue number 19, then people will think, hey, this character's caught on. It must be worth something. And they'll buy in at that point. Isn't it funny how much it has changed? They used to do this thing where if you had a new character that was being launched, you would have the backup happen in an existing title. So this is another kind of ploy they'd use in the Golden Age. And in the backup of the existing title would be, it's kind of the origin story. And then when the number 1 issue, in this case they do go for a number 1 issue, comes out, they say continuing the adventures. They would do everything they possibly could to make you think that the characters had been around for a while. That was an advantage, and it worked by and large. That was a successful trick that people would play. It's weird to think that today we're 180 degrees opposite that plan. It's exactly the opposite approach, where you have major publishers saying, they can't really get a character over unless it's relaunched as a number 1, unless it is brand new. And how weird is that? But again, the purpose of creating these new characters was, to try and get somewhere, to try and make some money, to get some stability and everything else. The goal was, hey, we want this character to appear a lot. And if they appear a lot, then it's more likely to be successful. Kids will have something to grab onto, and then that's great. So again, I'm contrasting that with today, where if the goal is not to make money, and I'm not saying the goal is to not make money. The goal is, it's just the goal is it's a lot of cases. I'm not putting words in people's mouths. I see writers, I see editors talking about, finally, people can see themselves in these comics when they create all these different new characters. And generally speaking, that's the line they use for almost all the new characters. Almost every new character that's been invented that's come out is, there's a purpose to it beyond financial. The purpose is for strategy. I mean, who knows? The purpose is for, to basically people can see themselves in it. All right, cool. Again, if that comic never goes anywhere, if you get 1 issue out and you're done, do you check the box? Did you win? Did you do what you needed to do? Because this is the way I think about it. To me, it feels very negative, very cynical to say, hey, you want to see yourself in a comic book? Hey, Ethiopian American, child of who knows, who has autism. We finally have a character for you. Now, you're not worth an ongoing series. You're not even worth a second issue, but you're worth 1 issue. We want you to be seen, but just quickly seen. Just a little, we want to peek. We want you to be able to peek at this character that represents you, and then just forget about it because we've checked the box. We've solved it. You can't complain because we gave you a comic book with 3 pages of a backup story inside an anthology where you were represented, and then see you later. To me, that's it's gross. That's the best way to put it. I just I don't think that first off, having certainly children of my own, and children come over and play at my house, and I mean, hey, my kids have a variety of children that play with them. Latino, Black, Asian. They've had it's been a complete different nationalities have been to my house. Um, I've spent a lot of time outside the country. I haven't met anyone in real life, including all the years running a store, who's come up and said, finally, I can see myself in that book. Now, I have had people come in and say, hey, how cool it is that we've got a black Spider-Man. I've heard that in stores. It's like, hey, it's a black teen Spider-Man. That's cool. And people are like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's more street Spider-Man. It's always where people go to. I'm like, that sounds like not exactly the best way to. I don't know if that's what they're going for. That seems a little weird to describe it that way. But okay. I've heard that, but I don't hear this clamoring from customers. But the publishers are obsessed with it. And so, but what's happening is that all these characters, like what the letter writer wrote, they're becoming disposable. They're just they come in, they vanish. I mean, I guess in many years from now they'll enter the public domain, but will anyone know or care? And because there's so many. There were a lot of characters that were made that entered the public domain because people just didn't keep it up, but not that many. Like I mean, I think we're talking less than 50. If you think about what's currently going on in the big two alone, they're generating 50 new characters a quarter between the two of them. I don't know, maybe exaggerating, but it feels close to that. There's a lot of new characters coming out constantly, and many of these characters have 1-2 appearances done. And why? What is the goal? What is the point? I understand now. Part of the argument that sometimes gets thrown back is to say, well, you said people don't want to change the classic characters, so if we want to create these new characters, we have to create new. We have to create new ones to represent these different groups. And again, I go back to, okay, but if you're not doing anything with it, if the character gets 1-2 appearances done, aren't you worried people are going to be pissed at some point? Like, the Arab Defamation League, are you worried that at some point they're going to come and say, hey, you keep bragging about all these characters you have, but, that none of them seem to last in the comics. They seem to vanish relatively quickly. Who was that character that Sultan Ahmed put in Miss Marvel, the bunker? His power is protecting people from trolls or hatred or something. And that was a big deal because was he Sikh? I apologize. I don't remember the details, but it was touted as finally that character got 3 appearances and kind of a co-star in an annual. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure I'm looking at this wrong. Tell me I'm looking at this wrong, but nobody's been able to explain to me why this is success. Anyway, to the other thing that the letter writer wrote. There we go. Again, there are lots of gimmicks and lots of tricks, but what strikes me, the really striking thing, is in the Golden Age, you had this desire to basically, create long-lasting characters, because the belief was having characters last a long time would equal profit. And so they would bend over backwards in many different gimmicks, both the title starting at a not number one number to the backup trick. I remember there was sometimes they would start things with a number one, and because you demanded it, the team returns, but the team had never been seen before. The team wasn't returning from anything. It was their first appearance. And there's a lot of examples of this, of comics, because the belief was, hey, longer runs, more appearances equals a good thing. The funny thing is, I think that's still all true. That's one of the reasons Marvel and DC maintain their dominance, is because they are banking off of this. We've got a long run of characters. When they do introduce something new, there's a built-in assessment like, well, it says DC, so it's tapping into a universe I already know, so therefore it must have certain stability. But they're losing that rapidly as they, reboot, relaunch, delay, change, etc. I don't know. It's I'll do a video with more examples of these gimmicks and things in the past. They are cool stories. But thank you for the letter. I don't get the strategy here. I understand I'm probably being obtuse. I just don't get it. And no, when I say that, I'm not looking for somebody to say, what you don't get, Perch, is that they don't care about profits at all. They're woke, 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 woke. Thank you. Thank you, Captain Obvious. I thank you for that. That is not the answer to everything. Anyway, I don't know. Would you buy an issue at just starting with number 19? I don't know. I think probably that would do the trick. But anyway, thanks for listening.